Welcome to a new episode of Marvel Schmarvel, our very special offshoot series of the Movie Schmovie podcast. This is episode 9 of Marvel Schmarvel, where we'll be talking about episode 5 of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier on Disney+. Before we get to that, my name's Steve, and I'm here as always with...
Oh, you always do. Sometimes you don't do that. I'm Ron.
That's true.
Hello. I'm Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. You can call me Val, but don't call me Val. Call me John.
Don't call me John Walker, though.
Yeah, don't. I just want to say, I've had a good, Wyatt Russell, I've said, has been a good sport about this. Like, you could tell he kind of enjoys that his character's getting to people. And I think actors do relish that kind of character. And I've been enjoying sort of the jokes and enjoying the character. I mean, he's despicable in a lot of ways, but I've been enjoying watching the story of this character. I would say this was the week, and I don't think it really had as much to do with the show as it just did the critical mass. This was the week that it started to bring me down every time I'd be listening to a pop cultural podcast, and they would say, let's just talk for a minute about how trash John Walker is. Let's all agree, John Walker is trash. This was the week that it started to be like, okay.
Do we have to?
Like, but it made me think, like, if your name was, like, I don't know, Bernie Madoff or something like that, you would get sick of, like, I know they're not talking about me, but it sure sells. It's like you could do a great edit of all the people saying those things and just send it to me. Well, we all know John Walker's garbage. John Walker can't do anything right. He's failed at every step. John Walker sucks. Man. Before we get to the stuff we like about the show, let's just for a second
get John Walker out of the way.
John Walker, get this asshole out of the way. Anyway, but yes. So, but what's good is that after next week, it'll all be at least in hibernation, if not over.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just taking a note real quick. I think Ron and I, we need to get a supercut together for your birthday. That's like a wonderful birthday present for you, John.
Yes.
So we'll get to that immediately.
I've never been the subject of a supercut before, and I've never had my name's never been out in the streets enough before to do that. Although it's such a common name, it's kind of like whatever. But no, that would be quite an honor if it was like all the voices that I love to listen to, all the pundits of pop culture, all just saying, John Walker sucks.
To just be the object of hate right now, it must suck, man. This guy is a true asshole who really has no regrets on the things he's done, man. He there's only one scene that I really think really compares to it, and it has a totally different context. But the end of have you ever seen Dead Presidents?
Yeah.
I have, but I don't remember much about it.
Oh man. Okay, so there's a scene where the character who does the huge robbery that's kind of emphasized in the film gets sentenced to life in prison. And he's in front of the jury, like, I've given you everything. Like, I fucking fought for this country. And he grabs a chair and tries to chuck it at the judge. That's really the only scene that I've ever seen that really matches the intensity of the scene that we had in this episode.
Like the Senate hearing or whatever that charge
the Senate
scene
hearing,
was. Yeah.
John Walker speaking to the Senate about what he's done and justifying his actions, and you made me, you did this to me. It was intense, man. How'd you feel about that scene?
I think he's full of regret. I think the guy is a pulsating bag of regret. I think guys like that don't know how to. I mean, you don't see how tortured he is.
I feel the same way.
I mean, I'm not defending the character at all. I'm saying that what makes guys like that so scary. It's kind of like in I know that a lot of people, this is a divisive character. I probably could have come up with a better example, but it's kind of like with Kylo Ren. How I felt like in The Force Awakens, people were like, "Oh, he's just a whiny kid. He's not scary." And I was like, to me, he seems scarier because he's petulant, because he's insecure. Yeah. And I think what we see with John Walker is a guy who does know something better. He does wish he could be that guy that people thought he was for a hot second, or that maybe somebody thought he could be for a hot second. So I think that, like, what makes him more scary and more what you're talking about, that defensiveness, is the fact that deep down inside he is fully aware that he is off the path. It doesn't make him it doesn't redeem him, though, with someone who's got that kind of, and they really double down on that idea of, like, whatever's inside you is going to get blown up by any kind of power, but specifically the serum. And I do think, if you're a defensive, insecure, inadequate person, or a person who feels that way, that doesn't make you a bad person. But if you suddenly have a lot of power and you can't get past those feelings, then you are definitely tilting towards like evil. But like if we can define evil as being a lot of different things, surely a kind of evil is a small person who acts out of being hurt or of being humiliated or whatever,
Sure.
you know.
Definitely.
So
Yeah.
I would say what I agree with you about that scene was it was kind of chilling because it made you go, okay, he's not there. Like, he's not able to accept that now's the time to sit down and think about your actions. Like, whatever heroism he may have been capable of in the past, I don't even think he could do the right thing now.
Yeah. It's like, we mentioned it, I think, on the last episode, but just like the whole that scene you're talking about, Ronald, like when he's talking to the senator that kind of like is this senator that we have a face on that we've seen in the series multiple times, like kind of screwing Sam over, and like, you know, and now being the one that is screwing something that, you know, he did basically try to create. But like the idea of John Walker just like kind of to the point that he became Captain America, he had basically succeeded at most of what he'd done, at least of what we know. And I think just that theme of like basically just being set up for failure, but like being the face of something because someone has to be it. So why shouldn't it be like the best soldier that we have? I just feel like they've done such a good job with this character, whether, he is a character that is made to be kind of, I don't know, hated or despised, but like a very questionable, morally disappointing character where you do see, and that's what I kind of agree with you, John. Like I do feel like the opening scene, even when he's running into that warehouse, and we get like our action sequence, like he just like, there's like a switch that goes on and off in him. It looks like where he's like completely ruptured by what he just did. But then the moment that like Sam and Bucky are trying to disarm him and he feels like threatened by that, like a switch goes off and he goes into this like defensive, you can't have it. You know, there's like this dichotomy of like, he knows what he did is, I think he does know what he has done is wrong.
Absolutely.
But there's no way in his mind to acknowledge that, because doing so would basically be acknowledging like failure, which he's never really failed at anything.
Yeah.
And that whole thing that they've done with him through these 5 episodes, I think has been great. I think he's done a great job as the character, like kind of just modulating between all these different layers of what it means to be a soldier and what it means to be a, you know, somebody that someone else looks up to, not even on like on a macro level, on like a micro level with like Lamar and like the scene with his parents and things like that. I just think they've done a really amazing job kind of stepping in and out of these like gray areas of a character that's obviously a bad person now, especially with the power that he's given himself.
Right.
But it's just like the whole season, I just feel like that is definitely a standout from this show for me, is like what they've managed to do in, 5 episodes with somebody that has never been in the series before. And, again, I don't know anything about going into it. Now I just want to see what happens with this guy, whether it's in this series or in the MCU in the bigger picture. But it's definitely a standout for me.
I think it's ironic that there's more consequence for this fictitious character in this comic book than cops killing black men in the street.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And then also what's really cool is the elephant in the room was kind of Sam kind of skirting around the idea that he didn't really say out loud what was his challenge of being of kind of taking on the mantle of Black America, of Captain America. But I think this episode really opened the floodgates. Everybody was kind of saying it. It went from nobody saying, man, it'd be hard to be black in Captain America, to everybody being like, man, I should have said something to you about it, because this is crazy. It's that this show is coded. I mean, whether people realize it or not, it functions as a very specific sort of story of like American allegiance and what it means to be kind of loyal to the idea of what it means to be American.
Right.
And then on another level, it's also like black people are watching this like this is something. There's a lot being shown on screen that really hasn't been represented, and some of it is just the lack of accountability that exists sometimes. I mean, somebody just being kicked out is not enough for killing a man in public, but it happens all the time. They're just like, oh man, that's terrible. He's on leave for a month,
right,
for murdering a person and changing the whole tree of someone's family. It's a weird thing to think about, but it really draws parallels to things that are going on right now. and I like the levels that this thing is working on. You could show this to a kid, they'd be like, man, it's good people can be bad sometimes.
Right.
And then other people can watch it and take different things from it. And that's why I was kind of saying it's like Schoolhouse Rocks for people who are very unaware of this system of a lack of accountability. It really is. Like I haven't seen too many things that represent this sort of thing on the screen the way that it has. And for Marvel to be doing it,
right. Right, I mean, is there a bigger microphone than Marvel, right? Like that's the idea, is that they've they're kind of taking the opportunity to whatever level they're committing to be talking about these things. And I think like what you're saying, and it really kind of in the show specifically, it's really become the like crux of Sam's like turmoil of the whole season of like what he did, what he should have done, what he could have done, what he didn't want to do. You know what I mean? Like, I think they've done a really good job of showing like how conflicted a character like that could be, or how a black man could be who is being asked to defend, to be the symbol of a country who really has not treated people that look like him well historically and even currently, which is a really tough decision. And I think that like, his exchange with Isaiah and like, talking to Sarah and like the people, the voices coming from all over, the spectrum of his life. Yeah. I just think that they did a really good, so far, it's been a really good balance of like informing Sam, but also there's like a viewer, who, like you said, like a Schoolhouse Rock thing is a good comparison, because it's like, you don't really always hear these things in the context of something that you're willing to understand them through. Yes. Like if you can sit back and watch your comic show, but then be like, wow, this is really horrible. Like that's a thing that happens. And if you're that naive, like that's really one problem. But, the fact that you're even willing to like open up and hear it, and you can see it, in people in his life and people in the show that look like him saying kind of two different things in a way, but not entirely different. And I don't know. I just think that like the last 20 minutes or so of the episode, like where you really see Sam struggling with like what he should do, is just like, I can't know that, because I'm not a black man in America, but like I can just like watch the struggle of like what he's talking to the characters that he trusts the most and like love and cares about the most, about how he's feeling. And it just like, it just reaches through the screen and like, just like completely rocks me when I see like a struggle like that. Yeah, and it's a real thing. And it's like, I agree with you. I think that they're doing a really good job in trying to say what they are saying, even if it's a starting point. Like, I hope they kind of continue to explore that with the show beyond, whatever he becomes and what he decides to do as, Captain America.
Yeah. There's so much to talk about with all of that. I mean, we kind of went from John Walker to state-sanctioned killing to different consequences for certain people than for others, to the struggle of you mentioned Isaiah Bradley, who had one of the best scenes in the MCU, if not the best acted scene in the history of the MCU. I mean, that was a scene that was two characters sitting down and talking about theme of the show. And for whatever reason, a lot of times that can be less enjoyable or less exciting to watch than like dramatic storytelling, showing it through action. But after this much action and this much whiz-bang stuff and this many explosions and brightly colored costumes, to have Isaiah Bradley, Carl Lumbly, in an amazing performance. In old age makeup, I still don't know why. Maybe they plan to use him in a flashback someday. It makes sense. Maybe they want him to seem. Maybe they want him to seem like. Maybe they want him to seem like a real hale and hearty old guy, so that it fits with the serum idea. But I still feel like we're going to get a young Carl Lumbly in a scene at some point. But that moment where he said, "No self-respecting black man would want to carry the shield." I mean, like I was thinking back to the first episode, and I was thinking about that moment he had with Rhodey, with Don Cheadle's character, where he was kind of saying like, man, I think you should take the gig. A little bit of like, if I was asked, I would take it, Yeah. But we know that Rhodey is a company man. We know, and we love him, but we know that he is the guy who would be saying, like, I mean, I'm not saying he would be arguing for letting John Walker off easy for what he did, but he might be saying like, let's keep this in the military. Let's figure out a way to solve this military problem in a military way. Right. So I think it's really kind of cool. And I almost kind of want to double back now and get another Rhodey scene or something, because he kind of, in some ways, could be seen as having given Sam an unnuanced portrayal of the situation. But I think he was kind of saying, like, I've been through all that, and I'm telling you, I'm still about the mission. I'm still about doing what's right. I think that it made me really think, man, we have really never cracked the nut of Don Cheadle's character in this series. And I know that there's an Armor Wars show supposedly in the works that's going to heavily feature him. I am extremely excited now for what they decide to do with him now that they've shown such just boldness and directness with dealing with these issues with Sam. And I would say that even though Sam still sometimes feels a little bit like a Cypher, a little bit like a guy we like because he's good, and he's a hero because we like him, and it's kind of a circular, oh yeah, him, he's fun, he's funny, you know, right. Anthony Mackie's good, that's a cool costume, flying's cool. We never have had we've never had much of a need of a character there. Right. I really felt like last night was when I was like, you know, they just clicked into something with Sam, and it was him listening to that respectful way that he talked to an elder, and these things hit him, and these things that he's been thinking and feeling, suddenly really between his sister and Isaiah, there's this thing of someone saying, no, the right thing for you to do is not to do, like, Isaiah's kind of given him one version of don't be the man they want you to be.
Right.
And Sarah's given him another version of don't be the man anyone wants you to be. And I think whether it makes Sam the most interesting character in retrospect or not, I've always liked him. I've always enjoyed his moment, so I'm not saying that. But it does definitely make me go, wow, this moment, this decision, it's once again, Marvel has done the thing where you think from the name of the show or the movie, you know what it is. And somehow by the time it gets to the end of what it is, that it's to what you thought it was going to be. And I was saying, like, oh, I thought this show was going to be Sam dealing with being Captain America and Sam and Bucky building their friendship moving forward. And it's like, oh, in episode 5, that's kind of the moment we got to, which is like, is Sam really going to be Captain America? What is Sam going to emerge as?
Right.
Does that box from Wakanda, does it have like new wings in it? Or does it have some kind of new Captain America costume that's got wings on it? That's what I'm hoping is in there. I'm hoping it's like they're saying, do it,
they're
man.
Comboing that up.
Because there's a great comic series, by the way, which is drawn by the brilliant Stuart Immonen, by the way, that like at least the first few issues of that, a beautiful art, and it was around the time they started doing the Falcon character in the movies. They did this series where he takes on the mantle of Captain America, and in that version of the story, Steve is an old man. It's a different story, but it's a similar setup, and it has led me to think that eventually that's where they were going with this character. But no, I say all that just to say I really feel like Sam kind of emerged as someone who is about to make a decision that we all find really interesting, and I don't know that that's been true of Falcon up to that point. Even through this show, he's been important, but he's kind of been like the leading man who's the strong guy who's there to say, this is what we got to do. I mean, he had that moment with Karli. That conversation was like a big character moment. But in general, he's been kind of hanging back and being a little quiet. And I like this idea that he's been watching and learning. And even that moment with Bucky this week, I didn't feel like we needed the moment where Bucky kind of admitted that he's had some stumbles in trying to be an ally, but he's committed to it. But I thought that was really nice and important to see. And again, like you said, Ronald, Schoolhouse Rock, it's a template for people out there. Hey, if you're watching this show, I'm sorry, maybe I sound like I'm being too preachy, but think about your black friends. They don't always want to have to reach out to you and say, here's what my story is, here's what my life is. Sometimes you want to ask, and sometimes it's nice just to let someone know that you understand they're going through a struggle. And I thought the way that they wrote Bucky in that moment really helped his character a lot, because what he said was so mature. It was just like, man, we never thought about it. What you're talking about. Well, what's cool, and I'll leave you with this, is that it shows that Steve and Bucky did talk about giving Sam the shield, and that Bucky was all about it. And I think that's really cool too.
That is really cool, especially being old white dudes like that. Not just white dudes, old white dudes who had seen a very specific type of racism. Like when you couldn't go I couldn't go certain places and I'd be attacked guaranteed. And that they come from that era, and for them to be like, man, Sam is perfect for this role, because Sam's kind of like, I mean, this is the last thing I'll say. Sam reminds me of sort of the energy of Jackie Robinson. It's not that Jackie Robinson didn't want to kick the ass of every white person that threw a watermelon or said something super racist on the baseball field. Is that he could contain himself enough during the course of those events to represent himself in a way that people hadn't seen. That's what it is. That's what Sam. It's weird that we're talking about a fictitious dude. I'm getting like, it's interesting that mantle is such a big deal, because it is. It's like 2021, you still hear the first black man, the first black woman, the fact that you still hear that is the equivalent of a Sam a
Yeah.
Jackie Robinson.
No, I
in real
celebrate and I cringe at the same time in equal measure when I hear this is the first woman of color to get this or whatever, and I'm like, that's so great, and then I'm like, wait, what year is it again? It's not 1921, it's 2021. Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
All right, we still got some work to do, folks.
Yeah. So they're handling this with a grace that I'm really enjoying. So things have kind of picked up in Karli's still on the run. I mean, like, is she ever going to get caught? Is she? What do you think?
I mean, I think she's just doubled down, like they said, like, you know, they say it in the show. Like, I think she has doubled down on this idea of just there's no turning back for her cause, and like there's no sacrifice that she's not gonna make. Excuse me, to see it through. And I think you kind of get that impression, like, you know, when you see that she's like willing to work with a character like Batroc, and you know that you see where that's going, and that makes a lot more sense now in terms of like seeing him earlier in the season and you know reintroducing that character. But yeah, I'm a little, and we talked about it last week. Like, I'm a little concerned for Karli. I mean, the moment with her and Sam was a genuine moment, and I think it's one of those demarcation points where you're like, how could the world have been different if that scene had went the way that it looked like it was going to go,
right?
You know, because then it's like a breaking point for her with the events that happened after that, and it just seems like that character is kind of in that world now. I don't know if the show is setting it up that there's still like an opportunity to I don't know, quote unquote, save that character, you know, their morals or their ethics or anything like that. And I mean, again, even some of the scenes with her and the other Flagsmashers, it's like there's doubt and there's questions even among them, which I think is not a great sign for that character.
Right. I think the fact that all of her lieutenants are seen looking around going like, dude,
is that what we do now?
It's like she saw what happened after that whole John Walker incident. And I feel like everyone in her crew is not that they're blaming themselves, but they're going like, okay, we can't become more like that guy. We can't, we can't represent that. And she's a little bit like, I don't fucking care what we represent. We got to do this, you know?
Right.
So she's not like John Walker, but there's a similar kind of own worst enemy maybe thing working with her where she does have a good cause. But she is, like you said, it's like, yeah, she now wants to say, let's hit him harder. You know, this is now the time.
Yeah.
I mean, there is something to that, man. She's feeling like the system has failed her and will continue to fail her. And she'll be dead by the time that, you know, that something comes around that really resolves some of the issues that are at the forefront of her struggle. Yeah. So she's going to make it happen on her own terms. And that means blowing things up.
Yeah. Well, you say she'll be dead. I'm actually very curious about this because this week had a moment where I didn't really think that Bucky was going to shoot Zemo at close range, but I did think that would be a choice, and that would be a way for this show to say, have we not confronted the ugliness of these characters and their world and the messiness of it? I'm glad he didn't do it because it's about Bucky's personal growth, that he's not that guy anymore. However, Zemo didn't know he wasn't going to do it. Zemo kind of wanted him to do it. Like, Zemo was like, okay, bro, let's do it. If this is how it ends for me, then in a weird way, I've won because I've just shown you something about yourself.
It'll always be a part of you.
Right. But exactly. I'll be with you forever if you kill me. If you just walk away, though, then I might be locked away. But it made me think, like, what kind of death can we expect? And I thought, okay, well, they do have characters that seem like they could die and characters that don't seem like they could die. And my thought would be, I don't think they want to kill Karli. Because I keep hearing them refer to her in the same breath as Killmonger, as like the villain whose story you understand. Yeah. I think they regret killing Killmonger. I really do. I don't think for story reasons they regret it. I just think that right now they would love to have Michael B. Jordan as a gray area character that they could plug into this universe that they have. And they continue to talk about that villain. I just don't think they want to set up another could be a hero type of villain and then get rid of him. But that Malcolm Spellman, who created this show, could very well have a particular storyline in mind for that character, and maybe death is the way to go. Maybe martyrdom or something is what this character is eventually headed towards. I don't know if I'll think they would kill her. And I would say the thing about John Walker is he seems like a character you're setting up for the future.
Yes.
Especially with a certain cameo that came in that I think could hint at a lot of great things. We definitely should talk about that. But it made me think another thing you could do with that John Walker character is if you weren't in the Marvel universe of interconnected franchises that roll on forever, you could be thinking, I want to tell a story, I want to complete a statement. John Walker dying in some way at the end of the next episode would be a huge story beat, would be a huge statement, and it would make his story like a concise thing we can point to and say they told that story well on that show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They told that story well, and then they introduced him to the Marvel universe, and now he's just a person that can pop up. I don't know. I guess I kind of wanted to know what you guys think about. Is there going to be a death count at the end of this show, or are we sort of in that Marvel world of, yeah, we're still setting up characters for the future, even if we are telling almost complete stories with them? You know,
it's a good question.
I don't think that anybody's gonna die. I know what you mean, and by death I meant like she's gonna get old before. She's gonna die of old age before the problems that she wants to get solved.
Yeah.
Like systematically. I meant.
Oh no, I wasn't calling you out on saying that. I was saying I've been thinking the same thing. Like, is someone gonna like? Are they going to kill these characters they've painstakingly set up for us over this show, or are they going to leave them intact?
I don't
think so.
I would lean on the side of no, only because I feel like that's consistent with some of the themes in this show specifically. Like, I feel like, especially with a character like Sam, you know, and now especially even Bucky, like with the restraint and the control he has over himself now, like I feel like if there's an opportunity to save a character, like save them in more ways than one, like not even just save their life from being killed, but like, you know, possibly like redirect their life for them and show them that like there are better things to pursue or whatever that means. I mean, I just think that like if there's an opportunity for mercy, or like I just think that would be really in line with what the show is going for so far. Like every attempt at violence has been thwarted, like, or at least tried to be, by Sam or Bucky, like by like talking somebody away from something, and they've failed basically to this point. So I would love to see, you know, a point where it could happen like that again, and maybe they succeed this time, and like they maybe we don't have to see somebody die in that moment. And I think that would be like a successful scene, because most of the scenes we've seen so far where they tried that, there's kind of been like a negative result in the end because of interference and things like that they couldn't control. But maybe if they can control that scene, you know, at this summit or at this Senate hearing, like where everybody's heading to New York now, it looks like it seems like there might be a big, you know, battle, action, standoff, you know, whatever, that maybe there's an opportunity to, you know, have an opportunity to save a character would be, I think, nice.
Only one of those characters has a homemade shield that he's working on. I found that sad when he put his Medal of Honor on the shield.
Yeah,
I actually found that sad. I mean, I'm like, this guy's broken. This guy is like,
he has multiple Medals of Honor. You can see him like going around.
I mean, but I'm just saying that made me think like. Yeah, like, again, I think it's everything to do with the acting, and I think the show is inviting us into this person's mind. They showed that there's a real reason why the first moment we got with him was a moment of doubt of whether he could handle this. You know, in retrospect, that scene's going to play like,
oh my God,
you're going to want to, like, someone just yell, "Don't do this." Like, get a cushy Pentagon job, you know, and go give speeches for the rest of your life. Well, let's do. I mentioned Julie Louis-Dreyfus's cameo. There was a big cameo talked about for this episode. I think with Marvel that can mean so many things. It can mean a character that people care about, but we've never seen before. It can mean a quick look at somebody that we think of as a movie star. Sure. People were rumoring crazy shit, just like with WandaVision. People get way ahead of themselves. We did a little bit. I wasn't confident, but I wouldn't have been surprised to see Doctor Strange pop up on WandaVision, and I wouldn't have been surprised last night to see some kind of scene that had somebody in it. But I didn't expect, like, again, you don't even want, like, oh, and that's when Bruce Banner showed up and saved the day. You don't want that in a show about Falcon and the Winter Soldier that's dealing with race in America. You know, you don't want that. But I did, like, that moment when it was her, I was like, oh, that's the big deal. It's that it's a star, that it's like, wow, what a get for the MCU.
Yeah. Huge.
Yeah, like it's in the spirit of Catherine Hahn too. It's like, here's someone who brings a different energy, a comedic energy, different from what we've seen. But I just think we can expect the Contessa or Val, or as you might know her from the comic books, Madam Hydra. I think we can expect her to be a fun presence to pop up. And the rumor that I heard that made me think, oh, that sounds kind of neat, is if she's a little bit of a reverse Nick Fury, and she's going to skim along here, picking up some of these villains and using them for future purposes. And also in the comics, she and Nick Fury had a romance in the past. So having Samuel L. Jackson and Julia Louis-Dreyfus playing like old flames who are amassing teams against each other. I mean, I'm not saying they would do that as a thing. I'm just saying any flavor of what I just said being part of the MCU sounds like a fun, like, if we're going to track a new overarching story, what's she up to? What's her plan? I think could have some real juice because she's so fun to watch.
Tell me, you guys tell me, what are the Thunderbolts?
I don't know much about the Thunderbolts
it's
at all.
Marvel's version of the Suicide Squad, basically.
Okay.
It's a team of villains who are captured but able to do missions to sort of like work off their sentence, so to speak.
Gotcha.
And at one time, the guy, there's like a version of Venom was in the team. John Walker may have been a member of the team at some point. I don't know. I read a certain run of that that was only maybe about 10 years ago. And I don't know if that was the iconic run. But it was very Suicide Squad-y, minus the fact that these seem to be villains who have always, there's a lot of that gray area in Marvel characters anyway. Like villains who already had heroic urges who are now saying, like, I can redeem myself, rather than villains who are, like, cynically saying, I'll do whatever the fuck you say because you're going to blow my head up if I don't.
It feels like, I mean, like from what I had seen after watching the episode, I kind of stayed away from everything, but it seems like that's a lot of the conversation. It seems like that might be that they're doing something with that character, which I think would be awesome if they could do that. Like that
a Dark Avengers too, because
exactly
they always
like
cast great
like
actors
that.
as the villains. So imagine eventually you've got Wyatt Russell, Julie Louis-Dreyfus, whoever else, Michael Keaton. I mean, imagine who else could be in this group saying, like, I don't know, let's take over the world, or let's pay
even Catherine Hahn.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Just pull them all together.
Cool,
it's a cool idea. And like, again, we like say this too much, but I really, really just love what Marvel's trying to do. They're building out this stable. They're like their long game is so long that like I don't think we even have a clue. You know what I mean? Like what they're probably talking about doing, and like the logic of reintroducing characters like Batroc and like introducing a new character like her in episode 5 of a 6-episode season. Like,
yeah, man,
there's just, I think I especially need to get out of the idea of like that these seasons are like really self-contained, because some of it does feel very self-contained and like we can take as a takeaway, but it's really just an opportunity for them to have more time to like get their hooks in deeper, man.
String us along.
I just really feel like it's like, oh, you love those 2 characters? Well, look at this other 5 characters that we just introduced. And like, 5 years from now, you'll probably see a movie where these guys fight the Avengers or some shit like that. You know what I mean?
I mean, a Dark Avengers team. A Dark Avengers team. Henry and I have this ongoing conversation, my son Henry and I, if you're a new listener, about just like what could they do now that would feel big? Like bringing the Avengers together was big.
Yes,
bringing all the characters together to fight Thanos was big. What could they do next? And it's like, well, the secret invasion thing with the Skrulls and people maybe not being who we thought they were, that feels big. But I got to say, a dark team, like a super-powered team of people who are like able to maybe even outmatch these godlike characters we've been watching, that sounds like a really fun thing to build up to. And it would be sort of a great, like, who's going to live, who's going to die, what actor's going to leave, what actor's going to join. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff they can do every 10 years or so. That feels like something you could really build up to, especially if we're watching that going, well, I happen to know that character has a struggle, or I happen to know that, we enjoyed Agnes. Is it Agnes or Agatha? Was it Agnes?
Agatha?
No, we enjoyed Agatha. We enjoyed watching, if not enjoyed rooting for John Walker. So I think there's this thing about like, just oftentimes these villain roles are a little bit thankless. So this would be a fun way to say, let's let some of them circle back around and give them something more to do. And if there's a redemption arc in place for somebody, I mean, I don't think any of the people we've talked about are beyond doing something heroic that would impress us. I think my namesake has a certain amount of hole to dig himself out of, simply because the entitlement and the you brought this on yourself aspect of his villainy is part of what makes him recognizable to us as someone we know in life, maybe a less exaggerated version, but just the person who doesn't realize they were kind of handed something and thinks they earned it. There's that saying, somebody was born on third and thought they hit a triple.
Yep.
I don't think that's quite him. But I do think there's elements of that in his story, that like he was kind of handed something that no one should be handed.
Right.
Yeah.
Except for Sam. How do we feel about Captain Sam America that we were kind of seeing towards the end of this episode? Do we want him to be? Do we want him to be? I want him to be. I want him to just fucking come out and say, "I'm Captain America."
Yeah.
I think it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
He looked at that that case open. I wish it would have had like a gold tint to it. So that was so cool.
I feel like the scene that kind of sold me on beyond him training and like obviously getting in shape and controlling the shield. And I got and I even got like super emotional watching him watch his nephew trace the star out on the shield. Aaron looked at me and I'm like, yeah, I'm crying, whatever.
Does Aaron look at you? Does she know when you're about to?
Absolutely.
Because Henry, we'll be watching something and I'll see him go. And I'll be like, how did he know that I'm like going?
Always.
No, that moment killed me too, Steve.
I was digging the scene, like just him getting better and like training and just like in his world, in his home, like I like that was the setting. But like you just saw like his nephews, like their interest in it, the whole episode, like them playing with it when Bucky was sleeping on the couch and like being like sneaky, like trying to get their hands on it, and just like him standing back and like watching him just trace that star, like just man, so good.
That is pretty amazing, man. I'm ready.
I want to see it. I want to see it. I want to see what's in the box.
What's in the box?
Yeah. Hopefully it's a better outcome than the
yeah.
God, what if it was his girlfriend we didn't know about's head? It's just like, wow, what a turn.
Those Wakandans went dark.
Yeah, shit.
The shit got crazy.
But man, there's only one episode left, guys. I mean, that's it. We got
only
one left.
So, okay, I'm going to come out and say, too, that even though it seems like maybe he's leaving the Falcon identity behind in some way, that guy Taurus, who's left with the wings, in the comics, he became another version of the Falcon.
I like it.
So, do we want Captain America with wings? Yes, I do. Do we call him Captain America or the Falcon? I mean, I think there's a lot of interesting things going on with that legacy idea. But
Captain Falcon?
Yeah, there's got to be, Captain America. Just call
American
him
Falcon.
Falco. How about that?
American Falcon. That might be it.
Honestly, that's cool because it's like not American Eagle. It's not a clothing line. It's not a jingoistic symbol.
Yes.
But no, I kind of want a season 2 of this show, I guess is where I'm the short version of what I'm saying. Like this is unlike WandaVision, which felt like, this could have been a movie that just became a show. Sure. But it felt like there's no real season 2 there. At least I don't think there's a season 2 there. This feels like get these characters together again. Have Bucky and Sam still be friends. Whatever Sam's doing. The only thing is I don't know if you can call it the Falcon and the Winter Soldier if he's Captain America. Maybe there's another Maybe there's another Falcon out there running around. So I don't know where they might go with it. But as far as like this ongoing soap opera, as we refer to it, I feel like this group of characters, it would be cool to see continue with this kind of storytelling. But they may announce a Falcon movie for all we know, like, or you know what I mean? That may be like, or Captain America 4.
Captain America, yeah.
Yeah, fucking A. Like, let's do it.
Hell yes.
Let's do it.
The last thing I was going to mention real quick, just like on the whole Captain America train, is I did love the opening scene, like where John runs into the warehouse and like, they confront him and they have the fight.
Yeah.
I love the flipped nature of that and how it mirrored the scene in Civil War where like two people were fighting Iron Man with the shield on their side.
Yeah.
And now we have two people fighting Captain America with a shield on the other side. I am like such a sucker for like fight sequences where you got like the 2-on-1 and there's like this like choreography between them
and the different ways they use it.
It was amazing. I thought it was so good. And
it was good.
The way that like Sam, used the jetpack to like push the shield back and like break his arm. I mean,
it also reminded me of trying
stuff.
to get the gauntlet away from Thanos.
Yes,
there was even some like angles that made you think of that. You're trying to get something off somebody, but what also a symbolic image too. What a beautiful thing. You're trying to get the shield away from this guy who is like, again, in his mind thinks he's fighting for something for the right reason, or at least that he should win this fight.
Right?
Yeah. But I'm just saying, in that moment, John Walker is one of those scary villains who doesn't realize what a bad guy. Like, he doesn't like, and I think you're right, Steve. The quiet moment before they came in show you a tiny slice of humanity of that. Like, if you've ever fucked shit up in your life and gotten around the corner and gone, oh God,
you just have that moment where like you're alone and you can acknowledge that like, oh my God, did I just fuck up? Like
that just blew up,
and he's like shaking and like you can see his body shaking and things like that. Yeah, I don't know. I thought the show, I was like really in from the jump because this episode started out with like a great sequence that was both, emotional and the action that I've been looking for, and like to have it kind of like you said mirror some Thanos gauntlet stuff, and also the scene in Civil War it reminded me of also. So I just love seeing Sam and Bucky fight together. So I hope this last episode there's like a really cool. I hope we get like a really cool battle or some sort of big action piece to kind of send this show out.
Like the way their powers work together,
kind of complement one another. Yeah, I love it.
They can also fix a boat. That's what I really love. Is those two guys can
fix
fight
a boat.
Evil.
Like, yeah.
I loved the boat montage when a rock song kicked in and they were like dun dun dun, doing the work, we're doing it together. I love
taking
that.
forever to like pry off a piece of metal, and Bucky's
that was
like,
so great.
Let me just help you, buddy.
That's the MCU, man. That's the MCU. They can start an episode with a scene like that. They can have a with a scene like the fight with John Walker, right?
Yeah.
They can have a scene where Carl Lumley points out the emptiness of American symbolism to a black person, and they can have a fix a boat montage between two friends who practically shake hands and look at the camera at the end of it. I mean, I can see why they were saying this episode was kind of the stunner. It was kind of a weird lump. It was kind of a weird lumpy episode in some ways because it starts so hot and it gets so quiet, kind of. But where it leaves us at the end is like, okay, now is showdown time. Yes. Now is like everything's converging at this one point, and we're going to see. The only thing I think feels like a little bit of a, well, that's done, is Zemo. Frankly, I kind of thought he would have some big move in the climax. I think in the end they just pulled him out because they were like, oh yeah, Daniel Bruhl, he's fun, and like I think they pushed him towards a comic accurate way of treating that character.
But now he'll be in Wakanda. So
well, he's going to be at the raft. They said he's at that prison that all the heroes went to in Civil War.
Okay. I missed that. I thought they were taking him back.
But maybe
for their own version of justice.
I mean, maybe the Contessa shows up at the raft and says, "All right, Zemo, let's talk," or something. I mean, who knows?
Shit. Yeah, that's true.
So,
all right, cool. Well, we got one episode left, guys. Do we have a poll question this week?
Ooh.
Anything coming to mind, Ronald?
Is anybody gonna die?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Who will die? A, B, C, nobody.
Yeah.
As D.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
You can pick A, B, and C.
I heard some people seem to think that Bucky's going to die. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think they brought him to where he is to kill him.
I'd be so depressed if that happened.
Yeah, me too.
I feel like for all they've succeeded with Sam, and he's like the star and the real like shiner of the show. I love Bucky's character. Like I love Sebastian Stan in the show. I love him in the MCU. I feel like there's a really good like gray area that he does so well. And I would really hate to like not be able to see him with Sam, especially if Sam does become Captain America. Cause it's like, again, it goes back to that therapy session earlier in the season, like where, they're talking about the expectations and like, if he's wrong about you, then he was wrong about me. Like, I would love to see them together, working together with Sam being like the hero that like everybody knows he can be, I would hate to not see them together.
One quick thing about what you just said, Steve, I'd like to know what you guys think of this. Didn't you think it was kind of bold that they are stripping away a little bit of the mythos of Steve and the fact that he's not here anymore to develop his views on a situation? Like they said he's wrong, or he was wrong about this, or he didn't know about that, or he's gone. Yeah. They said it a few times in this episode, and it felt to me like, oh wow, they're kind of like, even Bucky has to get out from behind Steve's shadow, whatever it was Sam said to him about like, don't worry about what he would think or what he thought of you. Like, it's great that he made you feel good about yourself, but don't be lost without him.
Wow,
it's kind of talking to himself at the same time when he says
absolutely.
That,
I have to say, yeah. No, that's. I think it's a bold choice too. I mean, like, I think it's also that would also make me worried when there's like rumors of like Chris Evans popping back up in the MCU in the near future. Like, I don't know that I wouldn't want that.
I don't want it.
Really committing to this. Like, as much as that's my favorite character, period. Like, I don't want it. I don't think. Like, I feel like they did everything they did in Phase 3, and it went so well. And you're doing some really interesting, great, new, groundbreaking things in some ways in these series, and hopefully what Phase 4 has. I would hate to see like a crutch come into place like that and like really kind of undermine a lot of this new groundwork you've laid with these new characters that are in some ways way more interesting and nuanced than anything that's been in the MCU before.
What about a flashback?
I'd say if it was a flashback, because if it had no bearing on our story now, I wouldn't hate that, like, as just informative or like for
it would have to be such a good
framework.
flashback, though, to make. I just don't think there's any reason Robert Downey Jr. or Chris Evans should come back unless it's like everybody heard the idea and they fell on the floor. This is so great. Like
100% agree.
There's no like market incentive. It loses steam if those guys come back.
What do you think, Ronald?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not. Leave them alone for a little bit. I mean, if people come back eventually, but I do like
10 years from now we might feel differently. But what Steve said about the near future, that's where the rumors are.
Yeah, the near future. If it's something like they may need him for, if they get some advice from him of something, but actively getting involved
in the story,
I don't want that.
Right.
I don't want that.
Right.
If Sam's like, man, I need some idea of how to go about this situation, and you like. He finds a way to talk to him, and he's like, hey, what should I do? I don't know how to combat this sort of energy. Right. And he gets some advice, and then Sam goes right back to business. I'm cool with that, but just somebody reemerging because they feel like it's like
because we've got them in the stable. That's what it would feel like.
Yes.
It'd be like, oh, they're part of the family. They dropped by the set. The scene to show would have been the scene where Bucky and Steve talked about giving the shield to Sam. That would have been the meaningful flashback for me, and we already heard, we didn't see that. So it's like I don't think they want to bring him back for like a battle scene, or I just feel like it would have to be the right moment. And even though I say I'm okay with the flashback, I don't want to see it because it's exactly what you said, Ronald. It's like you have a million other things to do before you do that.
Yeah, you've kind of like spent all the time you need to spend.
Yeah,
with that character, and you did it extremely well. Like don't taint it and don't sacrifice the current story for it. You know what I mean? I think that there's so much more happening now that could be better than anything that we've seen. So let it play out and see if it happens. That said, if it did happen, I would watch it. Obviously, like I'd be like, okay, cool. Like I love seeing him on the screen, but like I don't know that I'd be like happy for like where I want the stories to where I want these stories to go. But
well, there's this word, Steve. There's this word, multiverse.
That's what it would. Yeah,
that opens the door to anything. So maybe you'll get one of those guys coming back, but playing a different, like asshole version of their character or something like that. That could happen. Even
this week, like before we recorded, I think yesterday that news broke with Alfred Molina basically confirming about Doc Ock and Spider-Man and who's the director?
John Watts.
John Watts basically saying like it's the MCU. No one ever really dies. Like when you start seeing this shit come out, like. That's where you're like things like, oh, because they have the multiverse or they have all these amazing things that they're setting groundwork for, which is amazing for IP. Don't get me wrong. Like the things you can do and make money.
The things products, you can do. The money we can make.
it's like ka-ching, ka-ching, Scrooge McDuck diving into the pile. Like it's that, right? So it's like, I get that from a business standpoint, but like, let's see what you guys can do without going back to these characters. Use the ones that are still around and see what you can do to develop them. And I think that's where your efforts are best put.
Also, I would say don't shoot your genre in the foot by proving that criticism right. It's not really true that people never die. It's not really true that people don't have consequences in comics. It's just that after 50 years of keeping characters going, everything's been done kind of. It's kind of like The Simpsons, they've run through every possibility. So I think, it would be foolish for them to give fuel to the fire of that criticism of comic books and superhero storytelling. Because if anything, what they've shown with these 20 movies is like, no, you can tell stories that have arcs and characters that have destinations and not just, oh, we're trying to keep this going. So I think you're right. I think in the long run, story should win. And if there's a great story where somebody has to come back, it's cool that you can bring them back. But there should be no like whiteboard somewhere deep in Disney saying like, how can we bring them back? You know what I mean? Like, I don't want
that. Oh, that for sure. I'm sure that exists. 100%.
I'm sure it is, but they should keep them in the sub-basement of the sub-basement,
Yeah.
Right.
So here's the question. Based on the events of the first 5 episodes of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, who do you think will die in episode 6? John Walker, Karli, Baron Zemo, no one. Should I replace any of those? Should I replace Zemo?
I would put Bucky on there rather than Zemo.
Bucky?
There's rumors about Bucky. I don't think it'll happen, but there's people that seem to think it will happen.
Okay. Yeah, I think Zemo is kind of off the board for now.
Yeah, they really sort of just were like, you're not part of the end game.
So, John Walker.
So John Walker, Karli, and Bucky, and no one.
And nobody.
Or maybe I should do all 4. Should I do all 4?
I think pretending that we think even for a second that Falcon would die makes us feel silly. But like Bucky, there has been some like rumor about. But I still
God,
feel like
I hope that's so wrong.
I just think it
Please.
sounds so stupid because it doesn't seem like it's really being set up by the show. But that is the kind of he is the kind of character that I guess you give the heroic death to, you know. But I don't think they're doing. I don't think they've teased it enough for it to be that's where it's going. Marvel tends to really lay down the groundwork. Like as much as we like these surprises, they do a lot of setup for anything major most of the time. So
yeah, I think that's a good one.
Yeah,
I think that's good.
Well, I posted it, and in the words of Cardi B, when it's up, then it's stuck. When it's up,
There it is.
then it's stuck. So we're posted.
All right, cool. Well, like I said, we got one episode left. We'll be back next week to kind of round out this first season of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier and kind of give some, ideas of this episode next week and then the season as a whole. And then maybe talk about where we think that maybe the MCU is going in between. We got a little bit of a break before Loki opens up.
Yeah.
And we don't get Black Widow until July now. So, we've got a little bit of a lull so we can maybe forecast our own MCU ideas a little bit maybe next week.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be cool. But yeah, again, if you are watching this, thank you for watching. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. And like I said at the top, this series is kind of like an offshoot of our main podcast, which comes out every Friday. It's called Movie Schmovie. This channel that we're on here is Movie Schmovie. So if you subscribe to see our Marvel Schmarvel episodes, you'll see that as well. If you like podcasts, listen to podcasts on the go. If you have special podcast earphones or earbuds just for podcasts like John does, I'm never going to let you forget that now. I'm going to say that every episode, I think. They're right there. If you have specific ones for podcasts, please find us on the podcast platform.
I call them Pod Buds.
Pod Buds.
Yeah.
What was our sweatshirt that we had? We should sell them with our sweatshirt. Remember the hoodie we were going to make?
Oh, God.
I forgot.
If we could build them into the hood, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah, find us on whatever podcast platform. We're everywhere. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, where else were you on? You know more of them than me, but
all of the stuff.
Yeah, all the stuff is the right answer. But if you don't know the stuff, go to pod.link/movie schmovie. That shows you everything that we're on. And you can listen to it right on that page, even if you want to, just right on the website. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week again with the final episode of the Falcon and Winter Soldier season 1. And yet again, we don't have a closing for this episode.
I have a suggestion.
John might. Yeah, what is it?
Okay, make mine Marvel, right?
Uh-huh.
Schmake, schmine, schmarvel. That's just a thought.
Schmake, schmine, schmarvel.
Schmake,
And as
schmine,
always,
schmarvel.
schmake, schmine, schmarvel.
Schmake, schmine, schmarvel.
It just rolls right off
It
the tongue.
does, right off the tongue.
You killed it, John. There it is. Episode's over.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
See you guys.
Bye.